Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Seth Joyner Show. I don't know how you guys feel, but after watching that debacle last night, I think we all, as Eagles fans, are feeling some type of way about Nick Sirianni, about as the head coach and the offensive coordinator. We're feeling some type of way about Jonathan Gannon as, the defensive coordinator. And certainly, there's a lot of questions surrounding one Jalen Hurts and the way he's performed the last 2 weeks. Now, let's start with Jalen Hurts because a lot of you guys out there, you want to go back to last year and talk about my critique of one Carson Wentz. And I will agree with you. At this point in time, Jalen Hurts is teetering, on where Carson was last year. A lot of it can be blamed on the fact that, the Philadelphia Eagles only ran the ball 3 times in a 60-minute football game last night. That's unconscionable. I listened to Nick Sirianni in his press conference last night, and he said, our game plan wasn't working. The circumstances changed. There wasn't a time until late into the fourth quarter where the game was so out of reach that you couldn't stick to your game plan. You couldn't give your running back the ball. You couldn't help your young quarterback with a running game. That's inexcusable. When I look at the penalties, 16 penalties on the Philadelphia Eagles last night. They are leading the lead in that category. 16 penalties, 3 of them were declined. Okay, and I would say double-digit number with pre-snap penalties. Now let me help you guys understand. 9 times out of 10, while the play is going on, if there's a penalty, most guys get penalized because they're out of position and they're beat. So they're trying to figure out how to right the situation because they've been beat by a defensive end, by a defensive tackle. They're beat in coverage, so they pull on the guy. But when you have 10 plus pre-snap penalties, that's a discipline issue. That is a discipline issue, okay? The head coach needs to address this. If I was a defensive coordinator and I got guys jumping off sides, if I got guys on the offensive line that are jumping off sides and putting us in 1st and 15, 1st and 20 situations, guess what? You come on over here and you stand next to me and you watch the game from the sideline until you understand how important it is that you don't get pre-snap penalties. The Eagles found themselves in a hole all night long because of penalties. That's the least of their worries, okay? They got embarrassed on national TV last night, embarrassed on Monday Night Football against their greatest rival, okay? How do you defend that? How do you – listen, they're a young football team, and Jalen Hurts is still learning how to play the position. I'm going to go back to him right quick. There are plays that Jalen Hurts missed because that as an NFL quarterback, you must make those throws, okay? The throw to Goddard in the flat, you have to make that throw. The throw to a wide open Miles Sanders in the flat, you have to make that throw with nobody on. Let's talk about the mistakes, the interception, okay? The first one that he threw was underthrown. Big interception because they were moving the ball, had an opportunity to put some points on the board to kind of equalize things or even get the lead at that point. Major turnover. And then the pick 6 coming out of halftime. That's unconscionable because, that ball has to be thrown outside where Devontae Smith only gets his hands on that ball. If he catches it, great. If he doesn't catch it, guess what? It's incomplete. But where he placed that ball, as an NFL quarterback, you cannot put that ball there. You cannot miss there. Why? Why is he doing this? There's a couple of things. I think that quarterbacks like to operate under an even keel. And Jalen Hurts understands that. He tries not to get too high. He tries not to get too low while he plays. He almost has this, this lost look on his face when he plays. And I get it. You have to stay even keel when you're the decision maker and you're trying to keep everybody else around you as the lead on the offense, calm, cool, and collected. But there has to be a greater sense of urgency in the way that he plays the game, the way that he throws the ball. That ball that was underthrown has to be thrown in the end zone, where the wide receiver makes an over-the-top catch or it's an incomplete pass. And he just nonchalantly threw the ball up, and he was 5 yards short, and it was an easy interception for the defensive back, okay? If you've got a corner squatting on that out route, okay, you just can't throw that ball where he put it. I know that Devontae Smith fell down, but even if he doesn't fall down, the cornerback is going to undercut that. He's going to take it to the end zone anyway. So he keeps saying he's got to get better. We heard when Carson Wentz said, I got to get better. I will do better. Let me tell you something. The cliches, the rent is due every single day. I got to get better. The head coach saying, I got to coach better. Wearing the T-shirts and all that kind of stuff, beat Dallas the week before the game. All of that stuff is going to wear very, very, very thin real soon in the city of Philadelphia if this organization doesn't get it together from the head coach right on down to the quarterback. Now, the challenge is even greater now because you've lost 2/5 of your offensive line for quite some time. And, you've got the first rounder who lost his job to the 7th round project. He's having to play now. You've got issues up front. And to make matters worse, you continue not to even try to run the ball with all the problems that you're having up front. Let's go over to the defensive side of the ball right quick. It is perplexing to me that this organization does not see the importance of linebackers, and they haven't for quite some time. They have not drafted a linebacker since Michael Kendricks, and I want to say that was back, maybe 10 years ago. It's an important position because teams primarily run a 4-2 front. You don't have 4-3 fronts with 3 linebackers. You don't have 3-4 fronts with 4 linebackers, or 4-3 fronts with 3 linebackers anymore. The 3 linebacker set has really caused defenses to alter what they do, and you only have 2 linebackers on the field. Now, you look at the good defenses in the NFL. Each and every one of them have at least one hellraiser at linebacker. You look at Tampa Bay, Devontae David, Devin White. You look at these good defenses, they have good linebackers. They value that position. Our linebackers, and everybody wants to put it all on the defensive linemen, our linebackers are not equipped to succeed because they are special teams players and backups. That's what they are. Let's just be honest about it. I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm not trying to point them out, but their skill sets tell us what they are. They don't read what's going on in front of them properly. They're looking in the backfield, trying to figure out what's going on. The double teams are going on in front of them, in front of them with the 2 tackles. Both Fletcher and both Javon Hargrave are being doubled. They're being pushed off the line. And then the guard or the center or the tackle comes off, and they pretty much are blocking our linebackers right where they're standing before the ball is snapped. They don't come downhill and take the double team off, which then allows the tackle to be one-on-one and to get in the gap and allows them to fill their gap. So then you have a solid wall across the defense. They were getting gashed 5, 6, 7, 8 yards a carry. And the defensive coordinator had no remedy for it until the game was over. Then he jumped in a 5-man Eagle front. And even at that, they really couldn't stop him because at that time the game was over. The Dallas line was rolling. They had it going. Zeke and Pollard, were doing their thing. And you have to be able to adjust early. But the linebackers are a major problem because they don't cover well. They don't drop. They're not aware of the routes that are going on around them. They don't understand when a guy crosses your face, if he's leaving, somebody's coming in behind you. If he's going out, there's somebody coming in behind you. They don't understand these concepts. They don't even understand the concept of understanding if I read the offensive lineman, the lineman's going to tell me whether it's run or pass. If he's attacking the line of scrimmage and they're coming across the line of scrimmage, guess what? It's a running play. If they pop up and pass pro, guess what? Get in your drop if you're in zone. Go get your man if you're in man. But they don't do that. They sit and they look, and they're looking to understand, trying to decipher what's going on in front of them. And the game of football happens too fast because the offense knows where they're going. They know what the play is, and they know what the blocking scheme is. Okay, so if they haven't studied up and they're not prepared and they don't know what to look at, if they've got bad eye discipline, guess what? The Eagles are going to have problems. They're going to have problems. Last but not least, before I bring in my guest, let's talk about our defensive ends. Josh Sweat has a lot of potential. The Eagles just paid him. But I watched him play last night. Like every single play was a running play, running up the field, taking himself out of the play. A single rush, no kind of move, no counter move or anything. That has to stop with Brandon Graham obviously out for the season. He's going to have to up his game to the level of what they just paid him for and play much better. Derek Barnett, I don't know how you continue to play him other than the fact that you don't have anybody else, because the guy creates and makes some of the dumbest mistakes as far as penalties as you can ever imagine. Jumping off sides, personal fouls, all of these things that put the defense behind the 8 ball. You got 2nd and 10 situations or 2nd and 12, and then you jump off sides or you rough the passer, you do something dumb to extend the drive. Okay. So where does the discipline come in from the head coach? What is the remedy? Because this has been going on from week 1 all the way through week 3, and it seems to only be getting worse. Okay. Now, I know that, the Philly fans are upset. They're upset at Nick Sirianni. They're upset at Jalen Hurts. They're upset, at what we've seen, from a defensive perspective. To be a fan of the Philadelphia Eagles and watch what we watched yesterday is just downright, disturbing. And then the question is, how do you fix it? How do you fix where they are right now with all the injuries that they have, with all the missteps that they've had? I'm kind of at the point where, I believe that week 1 was an anomaly. Everything fell into place. Everything clicked the way that they needed and the way that they wanted it to click. But I think what transpired after that is that them not playing the starters in preseason is now beginning to catch up with them. The injuries, because, you got to play in preseason to galvanize your body to get ready for the intensity of the regular season. Okay. You see guys getting hurt, guys going down, players can't stay healthy. The timing of the quarterback and the wide receivers being able to play through preseason and then get into a game during the regular season when everything is 25% faster. It's just not there. It's not there. And then finally, my greatest criticism of Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni right now is that he seems like that he's a single read quarterback. Like he's looking at one receiver. And if that guy ain't open, he's going to take off and run. Now, I don't know whether Jalen Hurts can't go through a full progression, whether they don't want him to go through a full progression, or whether the offense isn't set up for him to go from read to read, okay? And him not understanding where his outlet is all the time, because you don't have to take off, because every single pass play has an outlet somewhere. There's a get out of jail somewhere on every single pass play. But this offense doesn't seem to operate under those auspices. It looks like they're either half field read, 2 guys, or 1 read, and if it ain't there, then Jalen finds himself having to scramble and make something happen. Okay. Now I'm not sure. I'm not calling anybody out. I'm not pointing the finger. I'm just telling you guys what I see. And we all need to continue to watch it over time to see whether it changes. I think that Jalen can be the franchise quarterback. He's got to play with a lot more intensity. The team needs to be more prepared, and the coaches got to be ready that when they need to make an adjustment, they can't wait till the third quarter. They can't wait till the game is already over. The game is on the line to make adjustments. This might be the one thing that when you look at a young coaching staff that you say, maybe this might not have been the move. Now, I'm still willing to give Nick Sirianni and this young coaching staff the benefit of the doubt. Grow into your staff, grow into your players, be the best that you can be as time goes on, okay? But how much longer are we going to watch this before people start calling for Joe Flacco to step in and play for Jalen Hurts? It's already happened. I'm on social media. I see it. I hear the chatter. I even insinuated that maybe that's what they need to do. And sometimes it's not that bad of a thing. I think the mistake they made last year with Carson Wentz is that in week 7 and week 8, they should have sat him for a half and then brought him back, in the next game. But when you waited to week 12 to sit him, and then Jalen Hurts goes in and beats the #1 defense in the New Orleans Saints the following game, and there's only 3 games left, you have no other choice but to play him the rest of the way. And then you lose Carson, and he loses his confidence. I don't want to see that happen with Jalen. If you get to a point where you feel this guy is struggling, pull him out, sit him down, let him find his confidence again, and then put him back on the football field. All right? Now, Philadelphia Eagles has got a big game coming up this week on a short week against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are 1-2. I guarantee you Andy Reid will have this team ready to play. You know how explosive they are, how explosive they can be. This is a tall order. The next 3 games, they've got, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Carolina Panthers, whose defense is outstanding, and then they play the Super Bowl defending champion, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. To help me break it all down, okay, you guys know this guy is a good friend of mine, Hall of Fame running back, played many years for the Oakland Raiders, then finished his career, I believe, with the Kansas City Chiefs. One of the greatest running backs, to ever put on a helmet and shoulder pads in the NFL. Glad and honored to have, my good friend join me for the next 45 minutes. You guys know him, Mr. Marcus Allen. Marcus, what's happening, brother?
What's up, Pro?
You got it, man.
Hey, I like what you said, and you know what? I think I have some sway. I think I can maybe get you in an interview, whether you take the job or not, over at USC. I like the things that you said. It seems like you've got both sides of the ball down, what's necessary, and how to play the game and how to win. I think, Seth, would you consider it?
Hey, listen, I would definitely consider it, and there's no doubt about it. I'll tell you this though. There's slim to no chance, of that happening. Would I be interested in joining the staff from a defensive perspective? Absolutely. But I'll ask you this question. We kind of talked about it. There's this bent nowadays in football, not only on the collegiate level, but on the pro level, that defensive-minded coaches don't get a look from teams to be head coaches anymore. It seems like everyone is looking for the new Sean McVay. They want to run the spread offense, and they want to, razzle dazzle you. And defenses, in a lot of ways, become, second fiddle, to offenses. And I get it, and I understand that that's the new world that we live in. But wouldn't it be okay to hire a defensive coach and have that coach go out and hire one of the great offensive minds to come in, and all he's got to worry about? Because most of these head coaches that are offensive minded, guess what they want to do? They want to call the plays. They want to run the defense. And how is it that you can run everything that goes along with being a head coach and being a delegator, yet when the offense has the ball, you want to be in total control of the offense?
Well, that's a question that I think a lot of us, me, Ronnie Lott, and a few others have talked about. I go back to the essence of the game, and my coach was John Robinson, right? He was an offensive line coach, so he understood what football, the essence of football was, which is, block and tackle, the physicality of the game. And I think sometimes, I think at this point, we've sort of witnessed a bunch of guys that have gotten head coaching jobs, and they're just so interested in throwing the ball, right? And I've always said this, that throwing is fine, right? But running the ball, you mentioned something earlier, which I couldn't believe. You said the Eagles only ran the ball 3 times the entire game. It's like, whoa. That's crazy. That's not the football that I grew up and learned about, because you can pass the ball all day long. As a defender, you can have great coverage, Seth, you know what I mean? And you can, quarterback can obviously either throw a guy open or make a fantastic throw. The DB can make an excuse and say, well, I didn't see the ball, I didn't locate it, I turned the wrong way. And you never get tired in that game. You never get tired. And the running game is important, because that is the one part of the game that it's actually the only part of the game that it can destroy the will of your opponent, right? That when you look on the other side and you're running the ball down their throats and stuff, and then you see them drop their heads, you know you have them, right? You can do anything you want. You can add trick plays. You can throw the ball. I mean, you can, but you have to be able to run the ball. I mean, at the very least, to keep a team honest. Obviously, if they, the defense didn't have to guess at all. They know what you were going to do, which was, pass the ball the entire game. So what do the defensive linemen do? They just tee off, right? But you got to do a variety of things to slow the defense down. And running is part of that, because I think the most dynamic play in football is the play action pass, right? Because you have the physicality up front. It fools the linebackers. They have to come up and at least makes them hesitate. And then obviously there's routes that are either over the top or down the field that can take place. But if you only run the ball 3 times a game, you're not gonna get any defensive team to guess at all. They just know exactly what you're doing. Matter of fact, they may, you might as well just hand them your playbook.
Right. Well, the thing that scared me going into the game last night with the Dallas Cowboys was the fact that the first game, Dak Prescott threw the ball 58 times. 58 times.
Yeah.
And his percentage was damn good, to be honest with you. I mean, he was 42 for 58, 403 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Okay. But they lost the game. Zeke he had 14 rushes for 44 yards. Okay.
Yeah.
They go into week 2 against the Chargers, and Dak only throws the ball 27 times. So he's 23 of 27, 237 yards, and he doesn't throw a touchdown at all. He throws 1 interception, as a matter of fact. But Ezekiel Elliott and Pollard rushed 29 times in that game for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. So what scared me about them going into that game last night is that, for the last couple of years, Dallas has made the decision that it's now Dak Prescott's team. And you see this with teams. I saw it with Phillip Rivers and LaDainian Tomlinson. They pretty much just ran him out of San Diego, LaDainian, because they wanted to go to throwing the ball. And they knew that LaDainian was such a big part of the offense. Him running the game would make it all go.
Yeah.
But what Dallas has done is they realized that, when we need Dak to put up big numbers, we can get him to put up big numbers. Mm-hmm. If a team can stop us from running the ball, we know that Dak Prescott can complete 70+% of his passes. So we know that. But what makes us a more efficient offense is that when we get these 2 running backs going and they run the ball and we steal the will, and they stole the souls of the Philadelphia Eagles defense last night, okay? Now when we go play action pass and bootleg and everything else, guess what? We can get what we want. We can get because we got the defense guessing. Yeah. We're not making ourselves one-dimensional. So I get the feeling that Dallas just may take off if this is their mode of operation, because they were very, very successful last night with that whole mentality of running the football first and throwing off of that. They could get whatever they want. You could just see they were playing. It was like they were playing chess and the Eagles defense was playing checkers. It wasn't even close. They couldn't stop the run. When they went play action pass, the defensive ends were undisciplined, trying to chase down the run from behind, and they running bootlegs, and you got Dak on the edge, throwing guys open. It's just, what I see in the game right now is bothersome, because they're not teaching football on the level that we learn how to play football.
Yeah.
If I lost contain one time, I was probably on the sideline, because my coach just was not going to stand for it. Everything is inside. Your job is to make sure you turn it into where your help is. There's no help for you outside. I had a deep, and I want you to comment on that, but I just want to tell this story. I was coaching, my son's youth team when he was about 11 years old. And I had a really good defensive end, Marcus. And he thought that every play was his to make. And to be honest with you, he could probably make them all. He was that good, But every time there was a play away from him, he would always chase. So when they ran bootlegs, he'd lose contain. Mm-hmm. When they would run his way and run inside, he'd stick his nose inside, and the running back would bounce it outside. Okay, so I can remember in practice one day, he did that exact same thing. The running back went up inside. He stuck his nose inside. The running back bounced outside, and I blew the whistle. I said, "Stop! Don't anybody move. Stay right where you are. Okay? Don't move." I said, "So here's the teaching moment." I said, "Now I've been trying to get you to keep contained and realize and trust the rest of your teammates, because when you don't maintain contained, you don't do your job. That's the message that you don't trust the other 10 guys to do their job. You're trying to do it all, and team football doesn't work that way." I said, "So what I want you to do is I want you to turn around, look inside, and tell me how many players do you see inside." So he looks and he counts. He said, "I see 9, coach." I said, "Okay, now turn outside and tell me how many you see out there." He goes, "1, coach." And I got in his ear, and I'm like, I'm trying to hide him out there. He don't want to tackle nobody. Turn the damn ball in, man. It's just, I just don't get, why these coaches think it's okay to let these guys be fundamentally unsound. Linebackers playing outside with the wrong foot up, not taking on blocks with the proper hand, not reading, what they see. It drives me crazy to watch a game, because all the fundamentals and techniques that allow, defensive players to be better, they don't teach them and they don't hold them to that standard. And guess what good coaches are doing? They are calling plays in concert with the lack of fundamental and technical understanding on the defensive side of the ball. It's like, okay, I know I can get the edge because that guy's got the wrong foot up. Okay. Yeah. So let's run this jet sweep because we know we're going to get the edge.
Hey, Seth, I made a career off guys who weren't fundamentally sound, but I also understood the guys who were. And you made a point. Obviously, if you had outside contained, in the National Football League, I mean, honestly, I never was going to run outside. My thought was to widen you, come back underneath, right? And I felt like if I got outside, either this guy is not doing his job. Do you understand? Because if I'm looking at a defense and maybe it's cover 3 or something like that, I mean, obviously who has contained over there, you got to get wide and force everything back underneath because he's off the ball, or the safety may come down. But still, I mean, you're not going to come across the tackle's face or whatever, the fullback's face or something like that. No, you have contained because there's nobody out there. But trust me, it's like I always say there's 2 types of players, those who know and those who don't. And I've seen some incredibly talented young players that just could not, do their assignments. And so they were brought in for specific things. This is what you do, and this is all you're ever going to do. You know what I mean? And then I saw veterans who were just so smart, did what they were supposed to do, eventually, lost a step or 2, but were still playing the game at a high level because they knew what they were doing, right? And so to me, it's frustrating as well because not only do you want a physical team, I think you want the most intelligent team too, and certainly on defense, guys that work together, that understand each other. Now, if Steph says, "Hey, I'm going to cut across his face, you got my back, you come over the top," okay? I mean, if you guys want to do that kind of thing, fine, but if there's no communication whatsoever, he thinks you're doing one thing and absolutely you do another, that's not the kind of defense that I think that wins championships.
You know what that is? That's called a lone wolf. I mean, I had a coach who used to say, we don't want no lone wolves on this defense, But Jerome used to do that all the time. I'd be stacked behind him, and he'd be like, "Hey, man, I'm gone." And the first time he did, I'm like, "Gone where?" And then I learned to understand that he was a smart player, and he understood and knew, he saw something. And 99% of the time when he did that, he made the play in the backfield for a loss. So I learned, okay, what he's telling me, I got your gap. You take my gap.
You replace him. Yeah. So that makes sense. I mean, that's still gap integrity, but that's 2 players that know what they're doing and understand the game. But again, we talked about people that obviously line up at a position and aren't fundamentally sound and aren't doing what they're told to do or what they're supposed to do. I mean, obviously that get coaches fired.
Well, it's also, understanding what it is, that it's one thing. You can never play offense. You can never play running back throughout your career if you had no inkling what the blocking scheme was trying to accomplish in front of you. Yeah, you even have
Wait a second.
you even had to understand, what the defensive front was.
I'm not going to say any names. Do you understand how long? I mean, I played 16 years, and you don't play that long without them bringing in a first-round draft choice to replace you. Eventually, that has to happen, right? And I would try to give the guy, whoever it was, right? And I give them all the information I possibly could to make them succeed and stuff, right? And then we just compete, right? But it is the most frustrating thing when a guy doesn't really understand the blocking schemes, right? How to favor the double team, be patient, let your guard, come across and stay in a good relationship with him, whether you can bounce it inside or if it's not there, you can bounce it outside, right? I mean, just those little things like that, man, it's so frustrating. And then I see guys that run 4-3 running into guys' backs. I said that earlier today. I can play today because all I see is a bunch of running backs run into their own men's backs. You know what I mean? Their linemen's backs. I can do that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I don't normally do this. You brought up the whole coaching thing, and I got a lot of people on my board, and there was a comment. Creed Godbolt says it's too outspoken to coach in Philadelphia. Howie, the GM, wouldn't even grant him an interview. My thing is, Creed, do you want to win or do you want to lose at the end of the day? As a coach, it's your job to hold your players accountable. Because I have had coaches in the past, Marcus, that told me, you ain't gonna get my ass fired. If you're not gonna do what I'm asking you to do, then I'll find somebody else to do it. Listen,
Right.
It's really all about accountability. I'm not trying to make anybody feel any type of way. I'm not outspoken, but if I was coaching a group of linebackers, okay, I would create for them a toolbox, a technique and fundamental and a skill toolbox. And that toolbox is to help them be successful in the running game, in the passing game, whether it's zone or man. In the blitz game, you're going to learn how to rush the passer the right way. All of these things to help make them a better player. Okay. Now, you got some players that you got to kick them in the behind. Flat, that's just the way it is. You got 53 guys on the roster. Some guys you got to kick them in the ass. Some guys you got to pat them on the back because you'll lose them, especially in today's world. Thin skin, the young thin skin millennials. But if you got a player that really understands that, first of all, if he doesn't know that I care about him and that what I'm trying to teach him is for his own benefit, we weren't making the type of money that these guys make nowadays. You got linebackers that make more money in one season than I made in my whole career. Okay, but every single time a coach has something to say to me or instruction, guess what? I was listening. And playing for Buddy Ryan was never an easy thing because he called you out in front of the team. He called you out in the media. He didn't care. Okay, he was going to put you on Front Street. But for me, it was always there's something there for me to glean from it. Okay. Now I got to figure out what to glean from it and how to let the other stuff that really doesn't mean anything go out the other ear. Okay. If these players approach it from that standpoint, and you want to be great and you want to make all of this money that's available to you in the NFL, in today's NFL, then why would, tough coaching be something that would move an organization or move a player? If that player is not willing to listen, if that player is not willing to work and get better, then you can't win with that player. And I risk going, down the Mike Singletary line. Can't win with him.
Yeah. Well, it's that. We know this, man. Great coaches make you do what you don't want to do, so you can become what you want to become. Right. And
say it again.
Great coaches make you do what you don't want to do, so you can become what you want to become. Right. The other thing is that this is professional football. This is your job. And and I always wanted to, my approach was I wanted to be one of the best players ever. So I did everything to that end, right? Whether it was film study, whether it was working on my fundamentals, whether it was staying late, whether it was asking questions about, hey, Coach Mike, Well, I'm looking at the secondary because I always sort of looked at the safety, which is safety, safety displacement told me everything, right? But I had to ask about that stuff, I initially started at USC. I don't know if you know the story. That's that I was lucky enough, obviously, to go to USC, but I was there as a defensive back, right? And
Really?
oh yes, my idea I was going to be I was going to be a corner with Ronnie Lott and Dennis Smith, and then obviously Joy Browner would have come in, and that was going to be our secondary, right? So we were
Wow.
going to be stone cold, right? That was, but I mean, as fate would have it, man, I only say God, you know, God's plan. All the running backs behind Charlie was hurt, so they asked me to come play running back, right? And so I showed some braids my second year. I mean, my first year, they put me in a game. I saw some flashes and stuff like that that maybe I could obviously play this position. And then after my freshman year, John Robinson came to me and said, "Hey, Marcus, you're too good an athlete to sit on the bench. Would you play fullback?" And I said, "Sure." Right. I was undersized. I was only like weighing 190, and I was going against guys, at different times. Linebackers were 245, 250. Obviously, that was one of the greatest things that happened to me because obviously I had to, I think I became sort of a complete player then. And then I finally got my opportunity to play running back or tailback rather, my junior year. And I gained actually, I carried the ball quite a bit, but I gained 1,500 yards, and I really didn't know what I was doing, Seth.
Hmm.
I had no idea what I was doing. All I was trying to do was be physical, hit it up in there, be tough, and that was sort of the character or the legend of the USC running back. They were tough. They can carry it 40, 45 times a game if necessary, and that's all I was trying to do. And for the first time in my career, I heard some whispers like, maybe that guy's not good enough. We should get somebody else because once you make some, the tough run, some guy comes off the bench, makes a long run, and they go like, that's the guy that should be playing, right? And then after my junior year, I figured it all out, and part of that is because I did play quarterback, so I always looked at the game comprehensively, right? And so I looked at Seth. We talked about defenses, right? Whether it's goal line 5-3-6-2, I knew what everybody was doing, right? Whether it was an over and under, wide, or whatever defense, whatever coverage was, I knew everything, right? And uh, the running back coach, John Jackson, he's no longer with us, but he was the best thing that ever happened to me. He says, "Marcus, let's make some realistic goals." And I said, "Coach, I want to be the first back to gain 2,000 yards." He started laughing. And I said, "No, Coach, I'm serious." He said, "Marcus, let's stop BS and let's make some realistic goals." I said, "Coach, I want to be the first back to gain 2,000 yards, right? Because I figured I gained 1,500 yards and I didn't know what I was doing, right? But once I, put emphasis on the intellectual part of the game, because I had the physical part of it down, right? I knew I could take off. So to make a long story short, I ended up, gaining 2,342 yards, but that was because of this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I put great value on the intellectual part of the game, really being a student, understanding that, right? And I can't understand as a professional, right? This is your livelihood, and you don't know everything about the position, and you don't know the whys behind everything that you do. And if you don't ask those questions, you'll never be the player. I mean, why am I doing this, right? Because there's reasons why you're doing this, right? And understand the origin of the defense and why you're playing this particular way and so on. I mean, it's mind-boggling. I think if you're professional, I got a chance the other day to meet what's the man's name? The tight end, Benjamin. Oh God, played for the Saints and super
Watson. Benjamin
Benjamin
Watson.
Watson. I had a chance to meet him, and we talked for a minute. We're at the airport in Atlanta, and the one thing I told him before he departed, this says, "You know what, man, I really appreciate you because you were a pro." I mean, you can tell the way he played throughout his entire career. He was a professional football player, the real deal. He understood what it meant to be a pro, and understand that this is profession, this is his livelihood, and he approached it that way. I play with a lot of guys that don't. They don't really give it unfortunately, they don't give it the attention that it deserves and attention to detail. And you said it before, there's a group of guys on a roster, Seth, they're, self-motivated guys. And there's a bunch of guys that just need a little push. And then there's, unfortunately, a lot of guys that are just happy to be there.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And the really great teams have more of the motivational guys, right? And very few of the guys that are just happy to be there because they want to be pros, they want to be great at what they do, and they want to win as a team and stuff. So,
it's amazing to hear you break it down like that. You guys, you listen to Marcus Allen, Hall of Fame running back. I always looked at. I've always said that there's three types of players in the NFL. There's a player that's there for the notoriety. They want to go to the club and they want to go to the bar. Hey, I'm so and so, and I play for
right.
I play for whatever team. Okay, they like the notoriety. Then you got the guy that plays strictly for the money. And once they get the money, you can kind of see their game and their motivation kind of wanes. And then you've got the guy that loves the game of football, that wants to be a champion and will do any and everything that's necessary, to try to get there. Even though he can only do a small part, he's going to do all that he can.
And those guys stand out. You can't help but notice them.
Listen, there's no doubt about it. It's one of the reasons why I admire Tom Brady and how he goes about his business, because you know what, the guy works, he puts in the work, but he also holds everybody else as the leader of the team, not just the offense, but the leader of the team. And you hear these guys in Tampa Bay talk about it in just the first year. He holds himself accountable, he holds everybody else accountable, and he shows through his method of work, what's necessary to be a champion.
Right.
And the guy's got 7 Super Bowl rings. There's some teams that don't have 7 total.
He's a pro. He's a pro.
There's no doubt about it. When you watch a guy like Peyton Manning, you just know, that these guys are willing to do whatever is necessary, to be great. And
I played with one of those guys in Kansas City in the latter part of his career. One of the great things about him, Seth, is that we knew his Q rating was off the charts compared to everybody else. But when he walked into the locker room, he was just one of the guys. But at the same time, his work ethic, his approach to everything. And I saw him take responsibility for things that weren't his fault. You're talking about a great leader. I remember him throwing a pass to Willie Davis. He hit him right in the hands, and Joe said, that was my fault. Just to calm him down, just to get him back, mentally back where he needed him to be and stuff like that. But he was a pro, dude. The way he worked, the way he practiced. He practiced like it was game time, dude. Everything that he did, the proper footwork, the timing, all those things. When you see guys do that, and then you see other guys that don't, give it the effort that's necessary, that will help the team be as successful as they need to be. It drives you crazy. Obviously we know those guys, right? But we can't go home and babysit everybody, because players police players, but we can't babysit everybody. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a difficult thing to do sometimes and stuff. But our hope is that when I look at your team, when you played, you guys had several of those leaders. You guys had 5 or 6 leaders on the defensive, unit. And when you got 5 or 6 guys, then you got something special.
Listen, there's no doubt about it. That guy you're talking about, you call just Joe for my listeners, is Joe Montana.
Joe Montana.
And, my greatest level of respect came for Joe Montana in a game where we lost a 21-point lead in 9 minutes. Okay. Joe Montana and the 49ers came to the vet. Okay. And our defense was in its heyday at that time. Man, we beat Joe to a pulp, man. We sacked him like 7 times. We probably hit him another 15 times. I can remember, at the beginning of the 4th quarter, I hit him and he was like, oh, I'm like, dude, this game is over, man. There's 9 minutes left in the game. Just go on to the sideline and call it a day. and I always thought that, that Joe Montana is great because look at all the weapons he got. He got Jerry Rice and John Taylor, Brent Jones, Tom Rathman, Roger Craig. He got all of these and a great, offensive line. I mean, there's no reason why he shouldn't be successful. But Buddy Ryan got mad at Jeff Fisher. Jeff Fisher was our defensive coordinator at the time. 9 minutes left in the game, and we're up 21-0 in the fourth quarter. Okay. Buddy got mad at Jeff because we were in prevent defense, and he called another prevent defense, and Buddy said, "Go get him." Okay. So Joe drops back the first time, 80-yard bomb to Jerry Rice. Jeff goes back into prevent mode on the next series. Buddy comes down and snatches the headset off. I mean, takes his stuff off. He's like, "This is my damn defense. When I tell you to blitz, you blitz." He proceeds to call 3 blitzes in a row. Boom, boom, boom. We lose the game 28-21. Okay. And I'm looking at Joe Montana, and from what we understood, he couldn't even practice the following week. That's how bad we beat him up. I don't even know if he played the following week. But that's when when I garnered the greatest level of respect for him, because not only was he a smart player, but he was tough as nails, man. And he was just not going to give up. I mean, we beat him like he stole something out of our back pocket, man. And that dude just kept coming. He kept coming.
Yeah, there was an amazing privilege of being in the huddle with him, dude, and witness how cool he was under pressure, right? And yeah, he got hit, but he got back up, right? And he knew where everybody was on the field. Seth, I'm talking about him dropping straight back, knowing I'm in the flat, but never looking at me and throwing the ball over there. He just knew everything, dude. But the best thing about him was he was super cool under pressure, and we never panicked because he never panicked, right? And it's the same thing with your head coach, man. If you look over there and your head coach is panicking in the first quarter, it's like, oh, this is going to be a long day, right? But he had a look on his face, man. Don't worry, guys. No matter what the situation is, we're going to win, and everybody felt that and stuff. So, but he was tough. And unfortunately, I mean, obviously, as he got older, he couldn't move around as much as, but he could certainly feel it, where the pressure was, and, step to the right or to the left. And then, he knew exactly where everyone went down the field. And then he threw the most catchable ball, dude. And he threw you open, too. That was one of the greatest things about Joe.
Well, I mean, that's the thing that kind of perplexes me about these quarterbacks and the way that they're developed now. I kind of feel for a guy like Lamar Jackson, as great an athlete as he is. When he was coming out of college, I was praying that he would go somewhere where they wouldn't devise a offense for him,
right,
but give him time to develop and learn how to play the quarterback position the right way. Because the sky's the limit for this guy if he ever figures out how to throw the football. And learning how to throw the football is technique, is fundamentals, is footwork, and all of those things. But at the same time, the point you just made is critical. The great quarterbacks that I've watched and played against over my career, they could shut their eyes and tell you where every guy on the field, I mean, it's necessary, in my opinion. If you're the quarterback, and even if your progression is left to right, you got to know where the guy is over here, because if the strength of the defense is here and the progression doesn't give you what you want, in an instant, you can reset your feet, you can turn your shoulders, and you can set and take advantage of what's over here. But if you don't know where that guy is, if you don't know that guy's running a 10-yard curl and your back is running the flare route on the backside, okay, and then you got a post on the backside over top of that curl route. If you don't know that it's there, how are you supposed to complete those balls? How are you supposed to move to the next guy if your first option isn't available to you?
He knew it all. Hey, well, Seth, here's the other thing that when I watch college football, which really disappoints me, is that the offensive coordinator on the sideline calls all the audibles. I mean, I see offensive linemen look to the sidelines, look at the quarterback, look to the when we came into the game, I mean, the quarterback, or let's look at today, how many quarterbacks, if all the coordinators, got strep throat or couldn't talk or whatever, offensive coordinators, how many guys could actually call their own plays? There's very few of them. Tom Brady could. You know, Aaron Rodgers probably could. Who else?
Mahomes.
I don't know.
I think Mahomes could. I think
Yeah,
Mahomes can
I
run his
think
own.
he could. Yeah, of course. But that's what I
Right.
mean. What has happened is that there is a growth that's necessary from college to pros, because they've been sort of handicapped because what they should have learned in college has been taken away from them. All right. I mean, they're basically just getting info from the coordinator and then just repeating what Drake, I'm on here, my little boy.
It's okay, man.
And but it's like it's crazy, man. It's like I've always said, the quarterback's supposed to be field generals, the smartest guys on the field, and they're supposed to know everything, right? And if they see something, hey, check, we're going to do this, right? Most of them don't do it. They look to the sidelines in college because they're calling all the audibles and stuff. And to me, a quarterback, the first thing I would teach quarterback, if I had a quarterback camp, I would teach them how to play chess, right? So they know how to, they know how to set things up. They know how to, attack. They know how to retreat. They know how to get 5, 6 steps ahead. That's what a quarterback should be doing. We shouldn't be taking that part of the game out of a quarterback and just relying on what somebody on the sidelines is constantly telling them. It's like, no wonder you don't develop as a field general and understand. Okay, listen here. I understand the situation of the game. Okay, listen here, guys. I'm gonna just throw this pass away because the game is still tight. We're not playing as well as we want to at this point. But if I just throw the ball away, incomplete, our defense is playing well. I mean, that's the kind of thinking. You know what I mean? What do guys do right now? They just throw it up. Right? I mean, throw it up for grabs at the most inopportune time instead of just saying, okay, you know what? Okay, I'll take the sack or I'll throw it away. All right. I won't win in this time, but we'll come back. We'll win on another play. I mean, but that's the kind of thinking quarterbacks got to have, and they don't have it. I mean, I don't really see it.
It's funny that you bring that up because, I think that's the reason why Sean McVay made the trade for Matthew Stafford. I think the NFL, they had Jared Goff mic'd up one game, okay? And, at 15 seconds is when they cut off the communication between the coach and the quarterback. So what Sean McVay was doing is he was basically telling Jared Goff what plays to run. They would get up to the line of scrimmage, or they would run their hurry up, or they call a play in the huddle and they get to the line in 25 seconds. Okay. And Jared, and they made a mistake. They had a mic for the game, and the boom mic picked up the conversation. And Sean McVay was telling him what to run, what play to get into, what play to check. Now you're paying these quarterbacks $30, $40 million, and you have to tell them what plays to get in and out of at the line of scrimmage. I mean, I just think that's absurd. And I think that's why, Sean McVay felt like they had to make the move that they made to get Matthew Stafford. And it looks like it's certainly working out for him because he understands the game a lot more. He can do the things. He's the field general that offense needs to be successful. And you see it a lot. You see it a lot.
So that's why we talked about this before, but I always thought players should run meetings because then who knows what they're doing. You know what I mean? It's like because I've seen over a 16-year period, the coach said, okay, this is who we're going to block, right? And he turned to the player, you understand? Yeah, I got it, coach. And then they go out in the field and they mess it up. But if you went to the board and say, okay, this is who we're playing, right? The Philadelphia Eagles, this is what they do, right? Obviously, you got to watch out for number 59, Seth Joyner, right? Because this is what he's going to do. Then you got, Jerome Brown. You got all these different guys over here, Reggie. I mean, then you start saying, in a certain down and distance inside of 35, they're going to come. You know what I mean? Because they want to knock you out of field goal position. I mean, if you get, 5 or 6, 7 players on whether it's in defense or offense sneaking this way, I mean, you got a brilliant team.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you got maybe one guy thinking that way, and most often it's the coordinator over there who hasn't really translated all that information to the team out there, or to the quarterback that should be, the field general on the field that should be, has the all-seeing eye. But unfortunately, that has been taken away from them in college.
Yeah, if I was coaching, I would randomly make my guys come up to the board for tests.
Yes.
I mean, just out of the blue. Okay, this is the blitz we're running. Here's the offensive play. Here's the name of the blitz. Now draw it up. Okay. And the first thing I would do the first day, when they walk in, because everything is on iPads and Microsoft Surface Pros and all this nonsense. When they walked in, the first thing I do, I hand them a pad and a piece of paper. Let me see your notes at the end of the meeting, okay? Because if you're not writing it down, you're not retaining it. It's just that simple, And right now, everything is done on the iPad and everything is done on the Microsoft Surface Pro, and it's like playing video games to these guys. They can't retain anything, doing it that way. So the development, that I'm talking about is that toolbox. That's part of the toolbox, on a weekly basis. Even though you have all the information, at a finger's touch, how much of that information are you really retaining?
No.
When they come out in the formation, do you know on the plus 30, 2nd and 5, what it is that they like to play? What do they like to do? Who's the quarterback's favorite go-to receiver in crunch time? Okay, what are their go-to runs? Because there's probabilities and there's tendencies, to every offense. Do you know those things so that you can anticipate, what is about to occur, rather than standing there trying to decipher and the game is just passing you by? It's really amazing.
Yeah, those are valuable points, and we witnessed it over, while we were playing, and obviously watching football for years. Where again, intellectually, I think you should know what you're doing, but I think also, Seth, we mentioned actually fundamentals, man. I mean, you're talking about a linebacker, man, keeping your outside arm free. That takes. Hey, dude, what they say? If it's even, I'm leaving. I'm gone. If it's even, but if I see that right arm free, it's going to force me to, it's going to force me to go back.
Sometimes you don't even have to see the arm.
Yeah.
A lot of times, all you got to do is show color. Just be in position and show color, because if I got the outside arm free and I show some color around the corner, and that I'm there, that if you come out there, it's a 3, 4, 5 yard loss.
Yeah,
exactly. But you ain't coming out there. You're gonna go up inside. But that's how do you get that across to to these young players, to learn how to do that? Marcus, in the last couple of minutes, I want to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. They're rolling into Philadelphia Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday. They are 1-2, just like the Philadelphia Eagles. They're coming off a loss in the Super Bowl last year to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've got one of the most vaunted offenses, that the NFL has ever seen. Arguably one of the most talented quarterbacks in Patrick Mahomes, and one of the great offensive minds in Andy Reid, and I'm trying to remember the brother's name.
Eric Bieniemy.
Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah.
I think they do a fantastic job, but they've been struggling the last couple of weeks. They lost to the Raiders in week 1, and then they turned around last week and they lost to the Chargers. Those are divisional games that they lost, and they're obviously not where they want to be. Patrick Mahomes has thrown 2 interceptions. As a matter of fact, they lost to the Baltimore Ravens. I stand corrected. But Patrick Mahomes has thrown 3 interceptions, in the last 2 games. And their offense just doesn't seem like it's where it really needs to be. And defensively, Spagnuolo has always done such a great job since he's been there. The Super Bowl win, and then they go back with the Super Bowl loss last year. They don't seem like the same team, but that's not saying a whole lot, because the Eagles are in disarray right now. And they're coming into Philadelphia to get well on Sunday afternoon.
When I look at the Chiefs, I mean, I still see a lot of talent. I still see a formidable team, but I see a team that really hasn't understood that, they have a target on their back, and especially in the AFC, and every team has improved. All right. They're not looking at Tampa per se, but they're looking at the Chiefs, because they got to get by the Kansas City Chiefs in order to get to Tampa. Right. So every team has improved. Right. And so the little, the carelessness that that we've seen early on is now starting to coming back to bite them. Right, they got away with a lot of things too because they were so much better. But now teams are, at least defensively, teams have gotten better and they're competing a little bit more. But I'm not particularly worried about them. I think they will, get on track. And we also got to think about the continuity of the offensive line and stuff too, which has been a problem. Obviously, we know they lost in the Super Bowl, but this year too, I think they have, I don't know if it's at least 4 different starters, maybe 5. They got a completely different or new offensive line. So that's still, work in progress, I think, and I think they'll be better. Defensively, I mean, I love Jones, but I don't know if he should be a defensive end. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that, Todd?
I think that they feel like he can be dominant, at defensive end, but I think he's better served at the defensive tackle position.
Yes.
Because he kind of falls in the mode of, an Aaron Donald. He falls in the mode of, a Fletcher Cox when he's fully engaged and when he doesn't want to be blocked in a one-on-one situation, you literally cannot block him. And he is he's one of those guys. One of the other guys on the defensive side of the ball, is the Honey Badger. He kind of reminds me, he's a hybrid, if you will, of a Troy Polamalu and an Ed Reid, and teams don't do a really good job of identifying where he is on the field. When he starts getting down around the line of scrimmage, you're going to have some problems on your hand because they do a good job of bringing him off the edge and they don't account for him because he moves down late in the play clock. They don't account for him and he's very disruptive. And then there's other times, where they sugar with him from one side and bring the blitz the other side. And he's a ball hawk. He's like, like Ed Reid, he just always, and Troy Polamalu, they always find themselves around the ball, making plays, stripping, intercepting balls, just, So listen, they have the players. The issue is, I'm not sure what the issue is, to be honest with you, because they got a lot of good players on both sides of the ball. For a long time, it was the cornerbacks. They through the draft and free agency, they seem to fix that. But
I think they'll pay more attention to detail. That's what I would focus on, right? Because at this point, again, they do have all the talent and stuff, but they're just going to have to be a little more sharper than they've been because obviously the competition has certainly stepped up. But as it relates to Jones, I agree with you 100%. I think he should be on the inside, and because he was a formidable pass rusher on the inside. Now, when I notice most quarterbacks, they get spooked from guys in their face and not guys on the edge. You know what I mean? So when you got a guy that can wreak havoc like Donald coming up your middle,
it's all good, man.
My little boy fell down. He's all right.
Tell my man I said hey.
So, Seth, what happens is, I mean, it's like, if you have a good tackle, and you can push the guy up the field, the quarterback can always step up in the pocket. But when somebody's in your face, and I think they're sort of, lacking that right now because he was so good in the middle. And then he was effective, obviously, in the middle against the run as well. So he was, so, I mean, I know they're trying to get, the max out of him, but I think you put him on the edge, you may lose something in the run game up the middle.
Listen, I agree. The Philadelphia Eagles going to have their hands full. Like I said, they're missing, 2/5, 3/5 of their offensive line.
Yeah.
The head coach is trying to figure it all out. They haven't been running the ball with any kind of real true commitment.
That's the other thing, too. They had a good running game last year, and Edwards Delora had a good game, I think, this past game. But I think the first couple of games were basically a slow start. But there again, what we talked about, the importance of the running game. You just cannot, no matter who you are, drop back, 70, times a game or if it's 65 plays. And throw it only, run it 5 times and throw it 60. I mean, you're going to put yourself at a disadvantage.
Well, listen, as great as Patrick Mahomes is, I think that they're a better offense when they can actually run the football. And I think that, the struggles that they've had, I think he's had to pass the ball a lot more than Andy Reid Well, listen, I won't say more than Andy Reid really wants to because he was pass happy when he was, in Philadelphia. But I think, teams are starting to realize that the running game is a lot more important. You take the heat off. That's going to be a problem for the Philadelphia Eagles because they haven't been able to stop, anyone from running the football when they really committed to running the football this year. And what better way to get well when you look at the last two games and look at how teams have actually run against this defense and say, okay, we're coming in and we're going to run the ball down your throat, and we're gonna control the clock, we're going to control the game, we're going to get what we want in the run game, and when we step back and we throw the football, out of play action and boots, we're going to get what we want there, and then we're going to force your hand when you're down to do.
Now you're dictating now.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, we're going to force you to do some things you really don't want to do. We're going to make you run some blitzes because you feel like you got to get back in the game. Then we're going to release Tyreek Hill and Nicole Hartman, down the field on these bombs and whatnot, and really see how your defensive, how your DBs, how your corners and your safeties hold up. So it's going to be a real interesting game to watch how all this folds out and how, Kansas City gets well. And, more importantly, hey, for my viewership, they're concerned with how the heck, the Philadelphia Eagles are going to get well.
Right.
And I feel like, they're sick right now. They're going to be sick for a while because I don't think this team really knows who and what they are. And they're still trying to figure it out as we roll into week 4.
Well, Seth, I was just thinking if I was a head coach, I would certainly have multiple packages, right? I mean, I would have more than just the air raid, if you will, right? I would have, three tight end set at a time, 2 tight end sets, 2 running backs. And then, come in with all wide receivers and scat protection. I mean, you just cannot do the same thing over and over again, obviously, and think you're going to fool somebody. You're not. Obviously, you're going to make it difficult for yourself because somebody's going to get a really good defensive team is going to know exactly what you're doing and stuff. But we aren't as creative. I think there's a lot of, people coaching the game today that never, I think would have been beneficial if they would have been around during our period where there was another game being played, we played for the phone booth. And I'm saying have a combination of all that, not just the let's air it out, let's have the, it drives me crazy, Seth, down at the goal line to have a single back running in against, there's always one unblocked man. It's like they have, there's always 6 guys at the line of scrimmage or maybe 7, and there's no lead back, there's no tight end, or they may have a tight end, but there's still somebody coming off the edge unblocked.
Right.
And he doesn't have a fullback in the backfield, yet they still run the plays. I'm going like, what the hell is going on with these people? How do they do that? I remember watching the Colts did that a couple of years against New England Patriots, and Willie McGinnis came off and made the play each time. I'm going like, well, of course, he's unblocked.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, you make great points, and the multiplicity of your offensive attack also creates stress on the defensive coordinator because you only got so many days to prepare. Now you got to prepare for, big jumbo set. You got to prepare for 2 running back set. You got to prepare for, 12 personnel, 2 tight ends in the game. You got to prepare for spread with 5 wide receivers. I mean, you got so much that you got to prepare for, knowing that this team can jump into any of this at any time.
And Seth, you know full well that you have limited time, right? But you're right. If they're doing everything right, you're gonna well, we're not gonna spend time on this. We're gonna spend time on what we haven't seen, right? And then they're gonna get you with something, obviously, because the things that you normally do may not be as effective because you haven't paid attention to that because you're worried about what all the other things that they're doing. So you're right. Defensively, it wreaks havoc at practice too. So.
Wow. Well, listen, man, I'm gonna wrap it right there. I know my fans wanted us to, not fans, but viewers, I should say. They really wanted us to, talk, more Eagle stuff. I'm looking at all the comments. What I'll say to you guys is next week I'm gonna do a talk to them. You guys come on back, after the Kansas City game. I'm gonna be sitting here taking all your questions. We'll go through all the concerns and all the things you want to talk about. and the intention was, Marcus, to talk more football. But
I know.
anytime I have a guest like you on that's able to, impart 16 years of NFL wisdom, Hall of Fame wisdom, Heisman Trophy wisdom, and the conversation is as organic as it was. I don't like to deviate from that. I just love to just, go ahead and let the show flow. And listen, we're 10 minutes over the hour that we normally do. That lets me know that we had great content. We've had a lot of listeners and a lot of comments, man. And listen, I thank you for your time. Again, I tell people all the time, our greatest asset is our time, and our most valuable commodity is our time. And you spending an hour and 11 minutes with me, with your son in the background crying and going on.
I know.
Hey, listen,
he's only 7, guys. I don't know what happened. He fell off the. He's climbing and stuff. Hey, Seth, listen here. Speaking of time, I need you to come spend some time with me on the golf course down there, dude.
I'll do it. Right? I'll do it soon. I appreciate you, man.
You got it. Anytime, man.
You got it. All right, guys. That's it for the week. Clap for my guest, Marcus Allen. Again, be good to each other. Take care of each other. But most importantly, make sure you love each other. I see you guys back here with a talk to them next week. Make sure you bring your questions. I'm taking them all and giving answers just like you like them, raw and straight to the point. Peace.
Later, Seth.
All right, man.